Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Contrarians. We have another Dark Horse album panel discussion for you today with our wonderful patrons. Of course, Martin Popoff is here. On these episodes, what we do is we take a look at albums that are either not so seen in a positive light or a little underrated, depending on where you stand. And we kind of give these albums a ranking out of 10. And we go from there, basically. So I'm going to go around. I'm going to pick each person to share and contribute. You're going to tell us why or why not you like the album. You're going to say whether you're yay or nay, and you're going to give it a ranking out of 10. At the end, we're going to add everything up, and we're going to give our average rating. So we have T-shirts as modeled by myself and Reed tonight. So we are the two models. If you want a T-shirt, go over to tpublic.com. The link is in the description. They often do 30% off sales like every other month or so. So keep an eye out for that if you want to get a T-shirt. Other than that, we have our Patreon. We have our Ko-Fi. If you want to support the channel, if you want to join these discussions, you can join us at Patreon at any tier and like and subscribe our channel. And we'll go around at the end and see if anybody has anything else to plug. But today's topic is Black Sabbath Technical Ecstasy. So Technical Ecstasy is the seventh studio album released by Black Sabbath in 1976. It charted the lowest up to that point of Sabbath records and certified gold in the US, though Never Say Die would chart lowest of the first 8. Before I go on further with my research, how's everybody doing tonight?
Perfect. Great.
Great, Marco. Glad to be here.
I always forget to say hi, and sometimes I see comments like, why didn't you say hi to everybody? Okay, so I do have a regret tonight, but Bicycle Legs was unfortunately unable to make it tonight. He did share his opinion of the album, so here's his opinion of the album. So here's his little review. Bicycle Legs says, I'm thumbs down on Technical Ecstasy. There's some reasonable music, but Geezer's lyrics are not up to his standards, and the two ballads are god-awful. The worst ballads the band ever did, quite possibly. Easily my least favorite Ozzy era album, yes, including 13. I actually quite like that album. Sorry to have to miss the fun. Look forward to seeing what everybody else thinks. And you can follow Bicycle Legs at his YouTube channel where he does music reviews as well. Louder Sound ranked the Black Sabbath albums and put Technical Ecstasy at number 11. They said after 6 great albums, Sabbath faltered on Technical Ecstasy. I liked it, Iommi says. But with this one, the decline really started. In a surprise left turn, Sabbath gave a prominent role in this album to guest keyboard player Gerard Woodruff. Melody Maker praised the band's ability to break the mold and still provide exciting music, and many diehard fans thought the album sucked. The truth lies somewhere in between. Some songs, notably Backstreet Kids, sound hokey, but there are great songs too, including The Sleazy Dirty Women and a ballad sung by Bill Ward and later played live by Guns N' Roses. With the title from Bill Ward's song sums up the album, It's All Right. Their number one album was Paranoid. Ultimate Classic Rock ranked the Black Sabbath albums, put Technical Ecstasy at number 10. They stated a bold but ill-fated attempt to mature and explore novel musical directions. Technical Ecstasy could have turned out like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath Part 2, if not for the largely unimpressive songs to carry those innovations to fruition. As it stands, Sabbath's 7th album deserves a few gold stars for effort in the face of daunting personal demons and sporadic highlights like Backstreet Kids and Dirty Women. Number 1 was Paranoid on that list. Just 2 quick reviews. Metal Forces magazine gave the album a positive review, called it an 8-track opus and another masterful record by heavy metal's greatest band ever. AllMusic gave it a negative review and said the band was getting further and further from their original musical path as they began experimenting with their trademark sludge metal sound. While it was not as off the mark as their final album with Osbourne, 1978's Never Say Die, it was not on par with Sabbath's exceptional first 5 releases. Interesting that they didn't say 6. But those are the reviews, some rankings, and a little bit of chart and certification research. I'm going to go around, throw it around to some folks here, and we're going to see what you thought of the album Technical Ecstasy. I'm going to start with Reed, my T-shirt twin. What did you think of Technical Ecstasy?
All right, just getting my notes here. All right, so Technical Ecstasy. This is an album that I don't spend a ton of time with, and preparing for this chat reminded me why, because I always start off going, man, this is a great song. Why don't I listen to this album more? And then as the album goes on, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I don't listen to this album more. I'm really on the fence about this album. I do eventually come out on the positive side, but with some reservations. First, I don't mind the keyboards. I know that that is a criticism that the album gets. I actually love keyboards. I love the 70s keyboard sound in your, your Uriah Heeps, your Deep Purples, your Angels. And I think it really adds a nice texture to this album. So I don't mind that at all. I think Tony Iommi has some fantastic soloing on this album, some of the best he recorded in the 70s. What he doesn't do is kind of the trademark Tony Iommi money riffs, right? He's a lot more of a standard rhythm player, and then he really cuts loose on the solos. So that's okay. I like 4 of the songs. I like Backstreet Kids. I don't know why they think Backstreet Kids is cheesy. I think that's a fantastic song. It moves. It's got a great hook to it. Fantastic solo. I like You Won't Change Me, even though I think it sounds probably closer to Uriah Heep than what you normally think of as Black Sabbath. I like Gypsy, which is another heapy sounding song. And I love Dirty Woman, which Dirty Woman actually reminds me of kind of a Rainbow-esque sort of song because it leaves so much space for Tony to just jam. It's so jammy and not structured. Now, on the other hand, the other 4 songs sound like they're from different albums. And this is kind of where I start to lose interest in the album. Not that they're bad songs, but I don't think they mix well, right? It's All Right. In isolation, if that was on a Billboard solo album, maybe. But I think it doesn't fit in on this album at all. All Moving Parts. I love this. All Moving Parts. I was listening to it today and I thought, man, this is the most Lynyrd Skynyrd that Black Sabbath ever sounded. Maybe it was all those tours they did with Black Oak, Arkansas. And then the next song comes in and it's even more Southern rock, right? With a Rock and Roll Doctor, and it has the honky tonk piano in it. And there's nothing wrong with those 2 songs, but I don't think they fit in well with the more Sabbathy material that I already mentioned. And finally, again, It's Gone, which is probably the other ballad that Bicycle Legs is talking about. It's very generic to me. It's very 1970s AM radio. That song could have been performed by anybody. Just put a different lyricist on it, and it's a generic song. There's nothing Sabbathy about it to me. So I like 4 tracks, and I really like those 4 tracks. And the other 4 tracks, they don't really do it for me. But I'm not going to give it a 5. I give it a 6 because I think overall I like the things that I like about it more than I don't like the things I don't like. But 6 out of 10 is what I have.
Cool.
Sweet. Thanks, Reed.
Thank you.
James, welcome to the channel. Why don't you tell us what you think of Technical Ecstasy?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, coming in fine.
Nice. Well, I think this album, I'll start with the good. I think It's All Right. Pretty good song, Overall, this album isn't very Black Sabbath-y, but I think It's All Right because it's like a Billboard song. It comes out on top for me. And Backstreet Kids, I get the hokey thing. I don't really like that song. It does my least favorite Ozzy thing, where he follows the melody exactly in his vocals. Does that on Iron Man as well. It works on a few songs, but I don't like when he does it. The album cover is pretty cool, I guess. It's kind of weird. But most Black Sabbath album covers are strange. And She's Gone is okay. But yeah, overall, this album, it's not great. I prefer Never Say Die. It's probably my least favorite Ozzy one, besides 13. I didn't really like that album. So yeah, that's where I stand with it. I'll probably give it a 3 out of 10.
Okay.
Just some things, I don't know,
Yeah.
I feel like below a 5 sometimes can just sound like you hate the album in every way.
Yeah.
But 3, it's a few cool things, but overall,
yeah,
I think it's pretty trash, But yeah, that's where I stand on the album.
Cool. All right.
Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Welcome to the channel. I'm gonna throw it over to Martin because I think Martin might be defending this album. So
I'm definitely defending this album. Yeah.
Take it away then.
So yeah, I really love this album. I love, Tony went and self-produced this album. He complained that the other guys didn't work hard enough on it. So it's Tony with the mysterious Robin Black, who's always, the engineer side by side on these classic Sabbath albums. And Spock, I guess, helped him out a little. Recorded at Criteria in Miami. So apparently the Eagles were doing Hotel California next door kind of thing. And so yeah, it's in a weird environment, but Tony was saying the other guys didn't help very much. I love Tony's production on here. I love his guitar sound. You listen to You Won't Change Me, the guitar soloing in there. It's just the guitar is just so cutting and just slicing through when he's soloing on there. So love the soloing. So I think this is probably the best produced of those first 8 albums. I think everything sits great in the mix. Love Bill Ward's performance on it. Love his groove. I love how in Backstreet Kids, when the riff is going along, and you're right, James, that's an interesting point about Ozzy singing along with the vocal melody isn't much on that one, right? But Bill does this thing where he doesn't accent on the din, 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 and the first time around, and then he does it the second time around, and then he sticks to that sort of math on it, which is kind of cool. The other cool thing about him I noticed all over this album is he does a lot of snare fills, fast 8th note or 16th note. His fills are mostly on snare, possibly because the toms don't sound that great on the album. But so yeah, they got a lot of heck for this album because they were trying to be a little more commercial. So there's about half of it's kind of boy girl stuff. Gypsy, I think, is a great spooky story about, being almost like initiated into being a gypsy by this, wanton gypsy, temptress. Dirty Women is like this really sort of sad song about prostitution. Like, they kind of throw it off and say, oh, it was about there are all these prostitutes around Florida and we just wrote a song about it or whatever. But it's really kind of mournful the way it all goes together. I think that's a fantastic song. Kind of proggy, a lot of cool parts to it. That's the other thing. All the breaks on this album are really interesting breaks that they get into. I love You Won't Change Me with the fact that it really almost doesn't even have a beat. It's just, and then it goes into that groovy stuff. But yeah, Gypsy, I like that comment about it being a little heapy. I see the one comment from Geezer who says, oh, we were trying to be a little bit like Queen, or people were telling us to be a little bit like Queen. So I can hear a little Queen in that one as well. Love Backstreet Kids, totally rocking heavy Sabbath tune. I guess that one they get a little bit of abuse for it just being about, hey, we're young punks or whatever, right? Rock and Roll Doctor is the boogie woogie one, like is the bluesiest song I think they ever did, except for maybe some bluesy jamming on the first album. But I like it. It's pretty cool. Geronimo riff to open things up. All Moving Parts is really cool and a wacky story about apparently about a trans person who becomes president. That's what Geezer says, but who knows? He probably read that somewhere and then just kind of recites it and remembers it that way or whatever. But I'm not crazy about his little funky bass riff in there. I would like to hear that without that funky bass, those couple of atonal bass notes in it, and I bet it would probably be even better. But I love I'm All Right. I'm fine with I'm All Right, or It's All Right, sorry, because I love Bill to death, and it's cool, and it's a full band song, so everybody's playing. Tony doesn't come in for quite a bit later, but then he does an acoustic solo. She's Gone is just kind of like a dark, dirgy ballad. That's my least favorite. That one and Rock and Roll Doctor, my least favorite. But I love this album to death. I have no problem with it. I never get sick of it. I'm gonna go 9 out of 10.
Wow. Awesome. Brian, take it away.
All right. So yeah, Technical Ecstasy. This album, I first heard it when I was probably like 12 or 13. And that time I was like a really big, Paranoid fan and fan of the debut, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I hadn't really gotten into Sabotage yet, although that's my favorite one of theirs at this point in my life. But so when I first heard this album, I was not really a big fan of it, just because it was a little bit weird, typical Sabbath record. I thought the song titles were really off-putting. And to this day, I still think it's probably the worst thing about the album is the song titles. I think that was probably influenced my opinion a little bit of the songs. I'm just like Backstreet Kids, Rock and Roll Doctor, Dirty Women. It just sounds like basically any other generic hard rock 70s band. So like it doesn't sound like the Black Sabbath I know and love with, you know, song titles like War Pigs or Iron Man, like badass stuff. Like this is just really generic stuff. But as I went on and listened to this album more and more, I've grown to really love it over the years to the point where at this time of my life, it's one of the albums I'll go to more often by Sabbath, along with Never Say Die and Sabotage and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Like that's kind of like my favorite era of Sabbath, honestly, at this point. So I think Backstreet Kids is absolutely awesome. The riff is super, super heavy. Bill Ward's just killing it on the drums on that one. I think Ozzy actually gives a ferocious vocal performance on that one. I think, you know, his voice sounds great. He goes pretty high up there in his register vocally. And like, I think it actually kind of foreshadows a little bit what we'd hear like solo wise, his voice at times on there. And I absolutely love the keyboard solo in that one too. When it goes into that break, I think that just adds so much to the album. And I like that they started to experiment more with that kind of stuff because it added more, I guess, depth to the band, made them more interesting, a little proggy. You Won't Change Me, I think, is really cool. I mean, it has a lot of variation, like sounds. It opens with that super doomy riff. It's probably one of the most Sabbathy riffs on the whole album. Obviously, it changes a little. I actually absolutely love It's All Right. Like, I guess on paper, it would be a little bit of an awkward one, like, you know, Bill Ward kind of doing like his Ringo Starr song, basically. But I think it, in execution, sounds absolutely beautiful. Like it's a really moody, sad song. It's kind of cold, but I think that adds to it in a way. You know, he sounds fantastic on the drums. His vocal performance is really, really good too. I think it's better than Swinging the Chain on Never Say Die for sure when it comes to his vocal performance. But you know, it's just a really moody, solemn song. It's a nice one to drive to, like when it's like raining outside or something. You know, it really puts you in the right mood. I've definitely had a lot of like sentimentality with that song just in my own life. It's become one that I've really loved a lot. Gypsy's a really cool song. It's definitely kind of proggy. It's one of the strangest on the album. I dig that one a lot. All Moving Parts is a pretty cool song. It's got a good groove to it. I agree that it has a little bit of a Southern rocky type of vibe in the riff, but it's like Southern rock metal. It's like, it's an interesting song. I like that. Rock and Roll Doctor, I think, is a pretty good song. I mean, it's cheesy title. The lyrics are a little cheesy too, but I think it still rocks pretty hard and I like it. She's Gone, I'm pretty indifferent to. Like, I don't have a dislike toward it, but it's definitely like the least significant song on the album. And I think Dirty Women's awesome. I mean, it was the first, even when I was young, I didn't love this album. It was one of the songs that really stuck out to me. I was like, that's actually a pretty cool song. So I like that one from the beginning. I also do really love the album cover. I think it's one of my favorite Black Sabbath album covers of all time, honestly. I mean, obviously with the Dio years, they kind of stepped up their game album cover wise with like Heaven, Hell, and Mob Rules, 3 of the album covers. I do think the production sounds really good. Guitar sound, Ozzy sounds fantastic. You know, everybody's firing on all cylinders with this album. I would give it a solid 8 out of 10. I don't think it's like their best album, but it's one of the most interesting for sure. And it's one of the ones that I go back to more often than some of the others.
Cool. Nice.
Thanks, Ryan.
Okay.
I'm going to throw it over to David. How do you feel about Technical Ecstasy?
I'll start off with this. I have to, so check this out.
Oh, yeah.
I had to make my own poster
Yeah.
from a Melody Maker advert straight from like 70s. I bought this like off eBay like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So this is hanging up on my wall because you're never going to find a Technical Ecstasy poster, you know, in a record store or something, or online or something like
I need to
that.
grab something too. Keep going. I can hear you.
I'm a fan. So because I think that this is a weird album as far as if you're a Black Sabbath fan, subjectively or objectively, you're coming into the catalog and you don't know anything else about the band, or you're fine with listening to a band take all these chances. I happen to think that a lot of the critiques that Sabbath Bloody Sabbath gets as being this great variety album, kind of prog and stuff, I think that I concur that towards this one. I think that it's such a weird album. I'll say, you know, for starters, what Reed said earlier, the 4 tracks that you mentioned, Reed, I typically, usually when I'm talking to people or I'm reading stuff, those are the 4 tracks that people tend to think are the most solid. It seems to be the other half of the album. Those other 4 tracks are the ones that get the most criticisms. I love how the album starts off. It starts off with this big explosion. It sounds like it just goes right into Backstreet Kids. And the weird thing about this album is that I don't go out of my way to ever listen to one track anymore. I listen to this album as an entire piece of music so often that I just let the entire thing run. And I never am in the mood to want to listen to just one song. It's either I'm in the mood to listen to the entire thing or nothing at all. I've heard this album so many times. I happen to think that it sounds a bit like a sibling album to Sabotage. It doesn't get the press that Sabotage does nowadays. I can understand, you know, why, because I think that even at the time, Sabotage sounds a bit more closer to the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and the Volume 4. But yeah, I've spent quite a bit of time defending this album to Black Sabbath fans and saying, oh no, this album's awesome, blah, blah. One of the first times I heard anybody ever really defend it to the levels that I really like it is I'd heard Martin mention it before, and I was like, oh wow, somebody else really thinks this album is as interesting and different. Because I just happen to think that those late mid 70s albums that these classic rock bands did that usually are fall offs, those seem to be kind of high on my list. My favorite Black Sabbath list is sort of like 4 albums that are like the children all fighting for the top bunk. Like they just keep on like switching off which one's my favorite. Here's something where I will differ though. I've tried to really enjoy the production on this album, and that seems to be the thing that I think is the worst part of the album is the production. It's not bad. I mean, I do love the album, but it's kind of like the way Born Again's production is, where sometimes it sounds like things are a bit underwater. And I think I want it to sound more like a Volume 4 style of production, or just maybe something else that was more contemporary in 1976. There was a box set, if anybody's aware, that came out last year, like a 4-disc box set that has new remasters. And there's an awesome disc there that has these alternate mixes and alternate versions of some of the songs. I believe All Moving Parts Stand Still is the one that has like a harmonica going on. And that throws me right back to the harmonica you hear on like the first Black Sabbath album. And then Steven Wilson does a mix on another one, and everything sounds I suppose it sounds a bit more balanced. Even though that is what it is, I think I still prefer the original just because that's the one that I've fallen in love with. But yeah, weird stuff, keyboards. Is Backstreet Kids like a heavy stick song? Maybe, you know, if you want to look at it that way. It's all right. I also agree with Reed saying that it sounds like it's a jarring detour where it doesn't seem like it's the same band. It sounds like a bonus track that somehow you shuffled into track 3. I like it though. I think it's cool. She's Gone I would defend. I like She's Gone. People would say that's like ballady or syrupy, and I'd always say, well, what about Changes? Everybody loves Changes, and I've heard that like a million times on the radio. Like I never hear She's Gone, so it hasn't like been played out to me. Dirty Women was a song too that I originally didn't care for. Like, let me put it this way, like it wasn't one of my favorite songs by them, and then I listened to it more recently and I noticed when the guitar riff like changes up like 2 minutes into the song, like, whoa, this is great. Like the song turns into a superior song as it continues going on, which I always like. So I like the weirdness of this album. I like how it's different. You're getting not what you expect. It's just a random grab bag in a sense, and it shows how, I don't know if they were, when it comes to a situation like this where a band does an album that's so idiosyncratic, is that the word? I don't know if it's them sort of like falling apart, if you're looking at it in a negative way, or if it's them like taking a lot of chances and having a little risky because they want to be artistic, if you look at it in a positive way. But yeah, definitely 8.5, no lower than that for me.
Cool. Here, I'll raise you there, David. So here's my, oh boy, you can't even see these. So this is my drawing using pencil crayon on black of that ad.
Oh my God.
And then I'll raise that again because I took an old still from an old Soviet Union play, and I made a Technical Ecstasy ad out of that using the same colors. So it says Black Sabbath gives you technical ecstasy on the steps. So there's what that one looks like.
Wow.
You have to send those to me. I can show them because they're kind of hard to see.
And then I made prints of some of these actually. And then I made this Paranoid one. This is really hard to see because it's all purple. This is all based on an old Paranoid ad.
Yeah, I can show them all while you're talking about it.
And then
you can send me the images.
Yeah, okay. And then there's one I made for using fighter planes for Master of Reality. So this is all just pencil crayon on black paper. And then the final one is just a straight shot of Tony.
Nice.
From yeah. So
wow.
I love these ads. I have a whole bunch of I have 4,000 of those ads, David, like that. And I plaqued some up. I went to a plaquing place and made some, and I was going to sell them. And I went into record shows and I was doing a bit of that, but they took up so much space and they were so heavy because it was on particle board that I decided, okay, I can't do this as a business. I don't have the space to do this. But I have 4,000 of those razored out of the old Melody Makers and Enemies when I bought 500 copies 750 copies for $500. And I kept all the ads like that and started plaquing them up. And now they're just sitting in plastic tubs. So anyways,
I think you're on.
Go ahead, Marco, take over.
With the Soviet era plays as Black Sabbath covers. That's a pretty interesting idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I got this cool book with some neat pictures like that. I'm going to do a Blue Oyster Cult one based on a set of an old, it's like 1910s or 1920s. I don't even know if it was called Soviet Union back then. I'm not sure when that came in, but.
Nice. Christian, take it away.
All right. I think the reason people are really harsh on this album is because they cling to the fact that this is the successor to Sabotage, and it came after the first 6 albums. And I think if you detach this album from the Sabbath name, this is a really good album. I've always enjoyed this album since the first time I've heard it. It's not my favorite of the Ozzy albums. That'd be volume 4 for me, but it's probably the album I go to the most. I actually probably listen to this album more than any other Ozzy album. I'm not going to say it's the best, but it's an enjoyable listen for me. And I think that's just why I like it so much. It's an easy listen. It's a fun listen. It's not too serious. Obviously, it's more commercial. They're kind of going into this direction of the production. It's kind of overproduced, you could say, especially for a Black Sabbath album. But yeah, I really like this album. I think it's much better than Never Say Die. I'm not a huge fan of Never Say Die, but yeah, I go to this album a lot. Backstreet Kids is a great opener. I love You Won't Change Me. Like Reed said, Tony's solo work is amazing on this album. And, it's kind of the songs are kind of developing into less kind of riff focused and kind of more focused on the song as a whole, I think. Yeah, Gypsy's super groovy. Billboard does great on that track. I really like It's All Right. Dirty Women is amazing. I love the riff. And there's Rock and Roll Doctor and She's Gone. She's Gone is definitely my least favorite on the album. It kind of just drags on and goes absolutely nowhere. It's completely one note. But yeah, I don't have much to say. I don't have any notes for this album, but album covers, I've always liked the album cover. It's just an enjoyable listen. It's fun, I can always put it on. I'll never get tired of it. I'm not going to say it's the best Ozzy album. I think that would be an injustice to Black Sabbath, but I definitely go to it a lot. So I enjoy it. But yeah, I'll be pretty generous. I'll give this an 8 out of 10 for Technical Ecstasy.
Cool.
Nice. Thanks, Christian. I might as well go and give my review. Appreciate everybody's review. I've kind of agreed and disagreed with some of the things said. First off, the covers. I really, really like the cover. It's one of my favorite Black Sabbath covers. Somebody mentioned they like the variety of the album. I agree. I do feel like I've heard Martin actually say things when an album kind of sounds like it's sequenced almost like radio, where from one track to the next. With this album specifically, I feel almost like you're almost tuning the radio channel after every song almost to like something different. I totally agree that first of all, Backstreet Kids, I think is incredible. That is very metal. Ozzy's vocal performance and the production of how his vocals are produced almost sound metallic in spots to me on this album, which I like. And it kind of goes with the theme of that futuristic kind of sci-fi thing that's happening with the cover, and especially with songs like All Moving Parts, which might be one of my favorite songs off the album. Track in particular opens with one of the coolest riffs, I think, on the album. And I love how that riff is groovy and how it grooves. I do like Gypsy a lot, and I love how that starts with the drums this time. She's Gone, I've kind of gone back and forth on. I'm not a huge fan of it, not because it's a ballad. I like when Black Sabbath does ballads because they're kind of melancholy, I guess, kind of dark and brooding. In this case, this is kind of foreshadows something like Revelation Mother Earth, which I prefer because Revelation at least has a hook, where I find She's Gone is almost missing a hook, or it's kind of flat to me. That's one of the lower parts of the album, but I've gone back and forth on that song because there's things I like about it, things I don't like. Rock and Roll Doctor is another one of those things that seems kind of like a simple commercially type of song to me, but I like Ozzy's performance on it. Dirty Women, I think, is the opus, I guess, of the album. That is classic in the way that it's structured, classic Sabbath, the way that it progresses into that fast kind of part near the end with Ozzy jumping in with the vocals. Just the performances I really enjoy about Dirty Women. Maybe not so much the lyrical content, but just the performance of that song, I think, is incredible. And that's a live staple to this day. You go and see, last time I saw them in like 2016, they were playing that one. Overall, I actually like the production on this. I think, I can't remember who said they felt that Volume 4 was produced better than this one. I kind of disagree. I like Volume 4 a lot, but I kind of feel like, I think the production on this is a little clearer than Volume 4. Volume 4 sounds a little more muddy or underwater to me, but I love Volume 4 because that one's super sludgy. Overall, I like the album. I like the album cover, but subjectively, I don't think that this ranks up there with something like a Sabotage. I think Sabotage, if you're going to give Sabotage like a 9 out of 10, I know Martin gives it like a 10 out of 10, says it's one of the best records ever. To me, the run of Master Reality, Paranoid Master Reality, Volume 4, that's kind of like where I love my favorite Sabbath. This to me, if those are like 8, 9s out of 10s, 10 out of 10s even, this to me is like a 7.5. This and Never Say Die are both solid 7.5s to me. Because I like most of it, and then there's like 1 or 2 things I kind of don't like. overall, to me, it's a pass. All first of those 8 albums with Ozzy are great albums. I like all of them. And this one, to me, is just another step in the road. And I think it's just as great as some of the earlier ones, just not as, I guess. I kind of just, that was a little redundant, actually. It's just as great, but not as great. Okay, good one. I'm a little off my game tonight. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, cool. Marco, could I just add a couple more factoidy things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they do talk a little bit about how in the context of this album, punk was coming in, and so Sabbath was seen as kind of obsolete. The record label was not really supportive of Sabbath at the time. They said it was kind of a low point in their lives. Don Arden had kind of moved on. ELO had become a bit of a hit, so he was spending a lot of time with them. I forgot to mention Jez Woodruff, Gerald Woodruff. I interviewed him for my Sabbath book, Sabotage, or even the old one way back then, but I think he's a great addition to this. And that clavinet part happening in All Moving Parts Stand Still, I think on the reissue you can hear that really turned up in the mix, but he does piano and synthesizer and all kinds of great stuff on here. I think he's beautifully mixed in. That album cover, of course, is a Hypnosis cover. Designed by George Hardy, but he usually does the drawing for Hypnosis, but he didn't do the drawing for this. Apparently it's Richard Manning did the drawing. What else? They said it was super expensive to record in Florida, so that was pressure on them as well. And it was just a bad time in their lives in terms of, like, Ozzy had already kind of, like, signaled that he was leaving the band, and Tony's doing all the work, and these guys are all just sitting by the pool, and Florida isn't there, the Black Sabbath kind of place. So there's a lot of weirdness going on with this record. But and the last thing I wanted to say is my particular take on the production is I think you hear that higher up the mid-range level that you hear a little bit on Heaven and Hell, actually. So it sounds a little bit like a Martin Birch production to me. So that's all I got. There you go.
That cover album apparently is supposedly 2 robots finding love at first sight. Apparently is what that's supposed to be. And I think the round robot is supposed to be female and the rigid robot is male.
Yeah.
And the keyboards, just to comment quickly about the keyboards, I totally agree. I love the keyboards on this record. And I think it gives Tony somebody to play off of. And I think that they add an element to the music. I'm not saying that, like, I don't prefer Black Sabbath with, like, just straight up guitars, bass, drums. Like, I like the keyboards on this. It gives Tony something to play with. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I really, really appreciate everybody being concise tonight. Sorry, I'm a little off my game. There's a lot going on, but this was awesome. I'm going to have to edit a little bit because there was a lot of freezing and stuff going on, and I'm sure a lot of my stuff didn't come through, but thanks everybody. I'm just going to go around, and if anybody wants to plug anything, go ahead. If you have anybody you want to say hi to, you can say hi, and then we'll wrap it up. Christian, do you have anybody you want to say hi to? Anything you want to plug?
No, but I think I will have a chat. I have something in the works right now. And so I'll just say stay tuned. And I think next video I might have a YouTube channel to plug. So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, so I've been doing a ton of written reviews on Facebook. My page is Ryan Vinyl Destination. Been having a lot of fun with that. I also have a YouTube channel for it too. I just put out we talked about our histories with record collection and collecting and the resurgence of vinyl, and I have a ton of other stuff planned. We're going to do some stuff about Aerosmith pretty soon. I want to get something out about the new Scorpions album, so keep your eyes out for that kind of stuff. I also on Instagram for Ryan's Vinyl Destination, but most of the activities on Facebook and YouTube, so be sure to check that out.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. How about you, David?
Nothing to plug in particular. Just, happy to be here. Individually, hello to everybody. I really appreciate hearing everybody else and let me chime in and, give my details and all that.
Yeah, good stuff.
It's always fun, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, cool. David. James, welcome to the channel. Do you have anything to plug or anybody you want to say hi to?
Yeah, I'm in a band called Bozos. Follow us on Instagram, Bozos_UK. It's the hard rock band. We don't have any music up yet, but we've been gigging and we hope to get something up soon. So yeah, just follow us on Instagram.
Nice.
Very cool. Thanks, James. I'll follow you on Instagram for sure. Reed, how about you?
Well, I've been doing videos with Peter Kerr down under, so that's been interesting. We recently did our top 5 Iron Maiden songs, and I guarantee you I picked at least 4 that nobody else expects. Check it out.
Nice.
Awesome. Martin. What do you got?
I got a pallet of books in from the UK last week. So that's the Judas Priest visual biography, the UFO visual biography, the Yes visual biography with the new cover and title, because we're doing a second half, and started experimenting a little bit with TikTok and doing a quick little thing where it's called the World's Worst Album Collection. Of course, I've got my World's Worst Record Collection. It's a long story. It's just about a bunch of crap in my collection, sort of thing. And of course, I've got my podcast, History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff.
Sweet. And we also have the Contrarians, and we have some exciting things that we're working on behind the scenes. So I'm looking forward to that. For March, following March, April, May, I think we're going to start hitting our stride real soon with some really cool stuff. Nick's back on board. He's got some really cool production stuff that he's working on. He's got a whole production studio behind him that we're going to talk about things. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but we're going to talk about it, see what we can do. And hopefully we're going to have some new exciting content for everybody.
Cool.
Awesome.
Again, really appreciate everybody for coming out. We got our Patreon, we got our Ko-Fi, we got our TeePublic.